Utah, when I was a boy, everybody knew what a downwinder was. We were the anti-nuclear capital of the world. I was an autistic kid. My father was a drafted United States Marine, an incredible man. I come from an incredible family. My uncle stood on Omaha Beach on D-Day. I grew up on a huge ranch out by the lake. He was a beautiful, incredible person. He was at Pendleton, combat ready, and they were human guinea pig. They were marched into the trenches in Nevada. They're called atomic veterans. He nearly died at the blast. Between 1951 and 1968, we had 300 open-air tests. Well, as different scientists started to write about this, Wallace Stegner was at the University of Utah at the time. I got to know him. Edward Abbey was hanging around there. I got to know him. I got to know all these environmentalists, and I was an environmentalist, and it was a passionate, intense subject matter there.
All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical. Plumgate, 311, whatever you want to call it. I call it Pacific genocide, whatever. It's fucking giant conspiratorial across all demographics. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. Plumgate, 311, whatever you want to call it. I call it Pacific genocide, whatever. It's fucking giant conspiratorial across all demographics. They'll be calling you a radical. May God have mercy on all of your souls.
Nuclear power was evolving. We were promised, oh, this can't happen.
Well, good morning. I know them dogma snuggies you spent 50 years down at the end. That dogma Kool-Aid and dogger burgers taste so good, but come out for an hour. Open your mind. Red pill, blue pill, freaking television, the box. Sucked up, sucked in, freaking hasta la vista, baby. The arrogance of America hitting new. The arrogance of the average human being. We can blame politicians, we can blame media, we can blame anybody, but let's get real. The fact is, there's an epidemic in this country, and it's widespread. It's called me, I. Self-indulgence. People hate everything and each other. They hate everybody. They hate animals. They hate birds. They hate trees. They hate the landscape. They love money. They love money, and not even the fact if they don't love money, they love the fact that their neighbors think they have money. Big, ugly houses. I mean, huge 5, 6, 7, 8,000 square foot houses. There's nobody in. You know, I was a contractor for years. I go in these big, ugly, hideous monsters. They weren't even decorated. They weren't even furnished, you know. One kid, maybe, 2 kids. I mean, I don't understand it. And the fact is, you're still going to pay property tax on it. You're going to pay insurance in it. It's a suck hole. You're being reeled in. And I'm here to tell you, Housing Bubble 2.0, when it happens, it's going to be the ugliest thing you ever seen. And you think gold and silver is going to protect you? It's not. You're going to have we're going to get a deflation scenario that's only a matter of time. Now, the dollar's rolling in. The dollar's the strongest it's been in 12 years this morning, maybe 13 years. Switzerland's broke ranks with the euro. That's nothing new. Switzerland always breaks. We can go back freaking hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years, Switzerland breaking ranks with everybody. The world's bank. Oh, yeah. And it's not gold holdings. And I'm here to tell you, you want to be a survivalist, which you think, oh, I'm going to move up in this house, get a bunker, and I'm going to hunker down. I mean, there you go. Self. I. It's a major epidemic. I can prove it. The USS Reagan hearing trial, everybody says, oh, there was no media. 2013 at the trial per se here. But when they tested the waters, the media in February of 2014, every media outsourced in the country reported it. No one watched. No one gave a fuck. You talk to mainstream media, which I have many times, they'll tell you straight up. You talk to Greenpeace. You talk to Sierra Club. They'll tell you straight up. We have to answer to our so-called either contributors, shareholders, or, you know, the powers there be. We have they have the tail wagging the dog, and they'll say they're not interested. They're interested in bombing Muslims in the Middle East. They're interested in fear, fake fear. They're interested in God because they think, here's what they think, and I can prove this too. The far right, Fox News, apparatus, and everybody they get on there. Their whole, Republican ring, and the Democrats just as bad. None of them ever served. They don't care. They are self-centered Freudian pricks. They're all about, well, I'm rich, I've made a lot of money, and I want it protected. And as long as America's fearful, I'm going to be rich and they're going to be poor, and my money's going to be, I don't care what happens to those troops. I could care less. Protect me. Protect my wealth. Because they're self-centered, self-indulged assholes. They worship the golden calf. It is biblical. You can get into reading so-called scriptures, whatever. I don't even want to have the debate whether Jesus was the Son of God or not. I mean, I go back to the forefathers of this country. They do not believe in organized religion. Neither do I. The fact is, they're hypocrites. They're all hypocrites. Now, yesterday, the last few days, it's the time of year I go out to Farmington Bay. I go up along the Weber and get my spot number and my number on how many, I don't know how bad this background noise is in here. I don't know what they've got going on here, but I get my number on the bald eagles. I've been doing it my whole life. I love them. I love to watch them. They're scavengers. So yesterday I put up a video. There's nobody out there. I talked to, Ross out there. He's been out there forever. She says, well, there's a different migration period. You hear her saying in the video, well, maybe it's too early. No. It's peak right now. The height of the eagle season, and I know, is the middle of January. It's the height. Now, is it different this year because of the low lake? Well, the lake was low last year. Now, they found 86 dead eagles last year. They were dying. They got them up as they were dying, leukemia. And now that antibiotics didn't work, nothing worked, leukemia. Same thing. They've got the same thing as the starfish. Now, that's 86 of them they found. What's the total colony population at its peak? Right on 1,000. Let's say there's 15 on the entire bay. 15. So Hennifer, up along there. You saw my videos I shot up from there last year. I've been up there 3 times already this winter. Counting. 2. I counted 2 one day, 1 the next day, 2 the next day. And I walk it. There's no eagles. And usually right there, I usually count right in the neighborhood of 30. Sometimes upwards of 40. There's 2. So, her and I had a long discussion. And by the way, they both knew all about Fukushima. They're very aware. Operation Jackrabbit, very aware. And they both said, well, why aren't we testing for radioactivity? And they're asking me. The DNR's asking me. I says, yes, it's possible. Especially while they were alive, dying. Absolutely, it was possible. I mean, they were alive, a lot of the eagles, when they captured them, put them over here on 12th Street. That's a private sanctuary. I interviewed them. I talked to them. And by the way, it was never confirmed that it was West Nile. Never. It's my theory, and I think my theory is pretty powerful and strong. I'll write a paper about it. When I was dying of leukemia in the bone marrow transplant of LDS in the fall of 2011, a report came out that entire flock of grebes, by the hundreds of them, were dead, just flew into they got tricked by the weather scenario, and they thought it was water and dove in. Now, that can happen. But what happens when a scenario like that happens, part of them, they'll die as they hit the water, but most of them don't. So you'll see wounded ones, you'll see dead ones, but most of them, they'll escape with an injury. They were all dead. So that's a lie, and I can prove that that's an absolute bullshit lie. That is not what happened. Dugway's right there. Now, Dugway does what they call, Dugway chemical testing out there. That's the Army's freaking nightmare out there. I've worked out there many times. That's where all the nerve gas is. That's where everything's at. And they still, the War Machine, the Manhattan Project opened and it's never shut off. Now, in 1968, there were reports that they had a major accident out there, and the ghost shoots were telling people. Finally, a reporter went in there, belly crawled in there. It took him a long time. He got those infamous photographs of all of the dead sheep. And the sheep herder confirmed, I believe the sheep herder also died. And there were human beings that died. Those photographs went viral around the world because people cared. Utahns cared then. They don't give a fuck now. So all the graves are dead. 2011. My guess is Dugway was doing what they do. Playing freaking God with their God particles, you know, doing what they do, you know, just throwing money out for overgrown kids, scientists to experiment with, you know. Here the government just keeps throwing money at the fearmonger. We got to do something with this money. I think they had an accident. I'm sure of it. You know, I would bet almost anything on it. Now, what I think, so now they announced to the world they're going to do Operation London Fog and Operation Jackrabbit in 2015 again. Now, let's be clear. They did not want to announce this to the public. They did not want to put the monitors up. They were forced. Their hand was forced by somebody inside the EPA. There was at least one person. I'm hoping that person can break ranks and make a statement. I hope they come to me. So why are they doing that? Why in God's name an old gas like chlorine? Now, there's going to be two separate tests, chlorine and, people say, oh, chlorine, radioactive. No. Two separate gases. They're going to release radioactivity. Now, for several years you drive, and I'm out there all the time along A80, and you look over to the right over there, you will see that major burn facility. That's U.S. Magnesium, the most polluted refined plant in America, in North America, bar none. They're still billowing, and there's 2010, 2008, lots of studies showing incredible intense mercury levels in the Great Salt Lake. And I love how Utah say, oh, the Great Salt Lake is just that stinky thing. The Great Salt Lake is one magnificent, incredible, one of the greatest ecosystems on the face of the planet. There's not two drainage systems in this country, not the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean continent. There's three, the Great Basin. Now, let's remember, these are the same people that cut down the oldest tree on Earth. That's right. University of Utah professor cut down one of the Bristol cones, right there, pines, on the Utah-Nevada border down there, the Great Basin National Park, protected. They gave him credit because he wanted to study. There's been a big debate, are they 2,000 years or are they 4,000 years old? That debate's reigned for decades. How really old are they? He wanted to prove it in his PhD. He filed all that they were. He finally got permit to cut down a certain tree. His arrogance again. No, I'll cut down the tree I want. He cut down a different tree, no repercussions. He cut down the oldest tree on the face of the earth. These are the same people that killed Bambi, the biggest mule deer on the face of the earth, for $36,000 per bid. Now, Antelope Island, you go out to Antelope Island. There's the old dwelling out there that was in disarray for decades. I did the stucco work on it. It's a plaster. I'd go out there in the morning. The biggest mule deer on earth are out there because they're not hunted. You should see these monsters. They're made. They will walk up to you. You can feed them out of your hand, and I'm not kidding. They're incredible beasts. I mean, wow. I mean, they'll take your breath away. Utah is so sick and so insane. They auctioned off. This guy bought the permit to go out, and these hunters they'll fly in from all over the world. My friend owns the elk reserve up here. And he says these guys will come in from like Australia, whatever, and go into a canned hunting facility where you're like shooting Bambi. And they'll kill him, then they'll go home, hang him on their freaking wall, and then tell these grandiose stories. That's how sick there's nothing hunting about it. It's just murder of a mammal and to justify their small dick. So this guy was smart. He bought it for $36,000. Now he sold it. I understand it was sold at auction because they go on these traveling gun shows and they hang them and they're very profitable. I understood he sold it for over $2 million. These are the same people here in Utah. And Utah the media doesn't care. So they're going to release radioactive gases called Operation London Fog and Operation Jackrabbit. They're not going to tell you one, and they'll tell you no protest. They know I protest. They know me. I spent half my life out there. I fight with them like crazy. They don't care. Why? Now, you go out there, you'll see these two giant white radnet balloons that were out there. They sat up there for 3 years. They were there temporary, giant balloons. That's what they were. They had some accidents out there. There's no doubt in my mind. And they know they had fucking accidents. And they're afraid somebody on the inside is going to squeal. Somebody on the inside is going to talk. And people are going to go to prison. Big time. Well, they would be hung, but American populace doesn't care. Americans like, oh, well, God will take care of it, and I'll go to him shall thou mayest. No, I'm going to go to heaven. No, that's how sick they are. These Mormons will tell you they're so gone, and the American populace, the evangelical community, the so-called, they're so far gone and so far removed from any of their own teachings. They're the biggest hypocrites in the history of humanity. Satan is really, if Satan is real or what, I don't know. I have no idea on all these concepts, but I believe in spirituality, and I believe that right is right and wrong is wrong. These people are it's a masquerade party. It is a giant masquerade party. What do you think all the hairspray's about, all the makeup? And they talk like this, oh, hi, man. They rely on passive-aggressive resistance. So those balloons were out there gathering data. They know. So they're going to re-release to check their dishes to see, oh, my God, did we really kill all those eagles? Did we really kill all those people? Oh, my God, did we do that? Oh, they know they did it. And so there's no media. There's no the PhDs that exist anymore. What a freaking joke they are in Utah. The guy that took over Steckner's for is a little short, midget, retarded piece of dog shit at the University of Utah. He knows me. I will knock him out one day. Got the ugliest old lady you ever seen. And oh my God, these two are hideous. He'll sit up there and he'll go around. He says, I've written 8 books now that no one reads and no one gives a damn. So he'll say, oh, clean coals and oxymoron, and this guy's still pro-nuclear. And I says, you're teaching Stegner's program? Oh my God, the most anti-nuclear. What kind of nuclear? People will still come to me and say, yeah, nuclear's bad. But are you kidding me? Solar took the field so long ago. Solar doesn't kill anyone. So the sun has heated this earth for millions of years. Millions. It's very easy to be honest, and it has been honest. Ask Los Angeles. Ask Southern California. Ask Germany. Ask plenty of them. Very easy. It's a cash cow. Nuclear is a cash cow. It's just like, so here we got Savannah River. It's being reported now. Now get this, the scientist writes this article and it comes out yesterday. And he's got the nerve. He has the nerve to quote Megan Rice. First article. I'd see that guy. I will knock him out. He's talking about Savannah River, which we've all been going crazy about Savannah River forever, because in 2000 they get Savannah River the permit, the first one in 30 years, to build a new nuclear reactor, take the moxied fuel from Russia and the United States and freaking remix it and moxie it. People say, oh, what a good idea. Consolidate all the waste. Oh, no. It's to make more bombs. The leaner, more efficient nuclear bombs, which is against international law. It's against international law. Reagan and Gorbachev signed the freaking treaties, not only to quit making more, but by international law to get rid of it. That's what Megan Rice protested at Y12 and at Y25 when she broke in. That's what she's protesting. She knows what I know. They're breaking international law, but America does not care about international, because again, America's I, my money, everybody thinks I'm rich, these self-indulged pricks. That's who they are. It's grotesque. It's an epidemic. It is a grotesque, sickening, and they think they're smart when they're stupid. America drunk on ignorance and proud of it. They're pathetic. This is the patheticest population in human history. It is a pathetic populace, and I can prove it. The average balance sheet in the United States right now is to the negative $150,000. That's what they're fake freaking equity in their house. This Fed slashing the interest rate, kicking the can down the road, this usury-based economy, getting rid of tariffs, getting rid of any protectionism, this free market fairy tale is a disaster. It relies on disposable income. And that's the low interest rate. Well, they ran out of bullets. So the entire economy is completely 100% hinged up on real estate values right now, include to the local municipalities. They're relying on property tax. And these people are being buried because all they're into is what the neighbors think. What people think. They have no self-esteem. They have no dignity. They have no integrity. They're living a $5,000-$6,000 house that they can't afford. They never could afford. They're kicking the can, refi. They're relying on raising the bubble, which it should have burst in 2008. But no, here they came in to the rescue and freaking used your taxpayer money and just looted this country. Well, there's one place that's looted it harder than even the bankers. The nuclear industry, the nuclear cartel. So at Savannah River, he writes, well, it's escalated it was appropriated $1.6 billion in 2000. But remember, that's before 9/11, that's before the Patriot Act. Now the cost has gone to $30 billion. It's time to pull the plug, he says. He comes out now. I said, a little late, dude. Where were you when we were having this battle a year ago? A year ago, I'm doing videos over on, we're fighting. We're fighting with lobbyists. We're going crazy. Pull the plug. Obama sneaks it through. Signed it. Gina McCarthy, head of the EPA, who was head of RadNet. They're all right out of the nuclear industry. They come right out of Exelon, Exelrod. They gave him carte blanche. Not $30 billion. They gave them $60 billion. Just handed it to them. Now, so what are they up to there? Yes, they got the Russian fuel, and we have the plutonium wars that are going on in the Ukraine. Russia versus Westinghouse. Russia versus General Electric. Russia versus the French companies. Putin's standing them off, trying to. Because why Westinghouse, General Electric? Now, Westinghouse was bought by Toshiba. They're the same company. They are the nuclear industry in Japan. General Electric is Fukushima. They are Fukushima. So it was Westinghouse. So the United States is the United States of General Electric, Westinghouse. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. For real. So the handout, what are they doing? What's Mox Fuel? Mox Fuel is to build more nuclear weapons. So they Mox the fuel at Savannah River right up the road to Y-12. The Manhattan Project is still alive and well right there. So they go right there. Against international law, that's what Megan Rice broke in and protested. They charge an 85-year-old man as a terrorist under the Patriot Act. The protege of Martin Luther King, the daughter of Dr. Rice, the daughter of freaking Madeleine Rice. Some of the most brilliant, some of the greatest human rights activists in human history. She's the equivalent to Martin Luther King. She's the equivalent to Gandhi. She's the equivalent to Nelson Mandela. And no one cares. She's sitting in Brooklyn in a prison cell. I've been over there to see her 3 times now. 3 times. I've been scheduled. I've been, going through the appropriate things, trying to get through the paperwork. And the USS Marshals won't even let me get my paperwork to Megan. I can't even get it to her. As soon as I send in my paperwork, it kicks right back. The U.S. Marshal Law says no. The BBC had a freaking interview scheduled with her. This is Megan's words. Right as they're ready to the night before her sentencing. She says, I was treated decent by the jail workers until our U.S. Marshal's office stepped in. She says, they treated me like shit, abused the shit out of me. She says, it really rattled and shook her. She's an 85-year-old woman. I'm none. And we're doing this to her? For trying to call out these incredible crimes? So the Mox Fuel, they don't get rid of fuel. Hello, there's no getting rid of it. It makes it stronger. It makes it more nuclear bombs. So why does it exist? It exists to make the nuclear industry doesn't exist for nuclear power. It exists for one thing. It doesn't exist to make nuclear bombs as peacekeepers. That's been proven that doesn't work. They exist to make companies rich. It exists to make human beings rich. Westinghouse, General Electric, Lockheed Martin. That's why it exists. It's there for one reason. And that's the only thing Mitt Romney that did say that it was true. Corporations are people. Absolutely they're people. Absolutely they are people. Now, the people, the board of directors, I've listed their names and addresses many times. These are the same group of board of directors that sit on these boards of these nuclear, Westinghouse and General Electric, that sit on the board of CNN, that sit on the board of freaking CNBC. So hello. But the American populace goes along with it. Oh, they worked hard. No, they didn't work hard. They inherited well. Not all of them did. They're pathetic. They're sick with greed, so they become this tighter and tighter club. So you've got a group of people, several hundred that sit around, they're competing with each other like little kids. Oh, well, he's got $4 billion, and I only have $3 billion. He jumped me on Forbes' list this year. And look at their castle in Croatia, honey. And they got their castle, and we need another one. That's all they care about, because once you get to a certain level of wealth, and it's been proven by many social scientists, that the person who makes less than $10,000 a year in the United States versus the person who makes over $300,000 a year, the person that makes under $10,000 economically is in much better status after a 10-year period. It's been proven over and over and over and over, and happier. Because it becomes a competitive cycle. Now, these people have more money than they can ever spend in multiple lifetimes. So because they're still human beings, and they're still cliquey, and they still fall into contemporary American culture, Well, which is the contemporary war culture, because it's all popism gone mad. It's capitulated. It's gone insane. It's over the top. These people are competing with each other. They don't care about what their life is or who their life is, because a lot of them are very wounded children. A lot of very children. They have no love. They have no soul. They have nothing. They worship the golden calf. The Mormons are the worst at it. And I can prove this in American culture. When the lottery bubbles in Utah, you go up to the Idaho border counts. I know people that own those little gas stations on the border and become multimillionaires off the lottery. You got no chance of winning that lottery. None. Zero. They will line up, drive 70 miles, 80 miles, 100 miles, and they will line up by the hundreds deep, by the hundreds, by the thousands deep for hours for something they have no chance to spend, 100, 200, whatever. It's like the NFL. In 1975, the average athlete made less than 3 times the average working class American. Bart Starr taught school in the off season. That's the Super Bowl MVP before it was called the Super Bowl. They made less than 3 times the American working class American. Is it because they made so less? No, because Americans made so much more. The average American made $106,000 in today's dollars in 1974. How's that possible? Well, let's see. One person worked in the family. It's called the participation rate. I want you guys to Google the participation rate. In 1979 was the lowest participation rate in the history since it was tracked. Why? Because Americans were rich. Lots of Americans didn't have to work, and so they didn't. They were into their families. They were into art. They were into culture. They were into community. I mean, you go back and look at art and culture in the 1970s. Why were there so many visual artists, and there were so many actors, and there were so many things, so many environmentalists, so many bird watchers? So they had time on their hands. A lot of people did not work, and they had money. Now, one person, how did that come about? So when people tell me, oh, it's always been this way, no, it has not always been this way. We had in America from 1945 to 1979, the strongest middle class in human history, the greatest socialized people in human history. The tax rate on the 1% was 91%. Hello. We had 400% tariffs on autos coming in. We had tariffs on everything. Now, let's talk about a tariff and how dogma you've been groomed with passion. Now, 3 or 4-fold the tariff works. On many multiple levels, it is the ultimate middle class survivor. Always has been. It strips power from wealth. So the United States, when they started stripping away their tariffs, Roger and me, American corporations are based on profit. Humans are based on greed, and it's an old economic philosophy that goes all the way back. Is greed good or bad? Well, greed can be good for emerging economies to a certain amount of time, but then what it does to the masses. So anybody that says that the greed complex is good, they also agree that slavery is good. And they also believe in the Ayn Rand philosophical lies, which that is science fiction literature. We have to skip over her. We have to take her out of the equation because she was nothing but a science fiction writer. These guys are felpful. She was no economist. She was meaningless, except for the fact that the populace has gone for this. We have to go back. We have to go back to, the greatest economist of all time. That's simple. The greatest economist in the history of humankind, Alexander Hamilton. It's unarguable. Thomas Jefferson's words, by the way. And I like how people will go into the Jefferson-Hamilton thesis, and they'll say they hated each other. Hated each other? Hamilton died for Thomas Jefferson. You do know he took a bullet, and he died for his friend Thomas Jefferson. So that Burr would not be president. Why didn't Burr kill him? He hated Burr. Burr was out of, by the way, Al Gore's bloodlines. So, a tariff, 225 years ago, right now, this month, Hamilton laid out his thesis to Congress, to his friends. They would fight like cats and dogs. They were the opposite. Hamilton, the poor orphan boy from Scottish royalty, abandoned in the Caribbean. Jefferson, the multi-gazillionaire, inherited wealth, freaking plantation owner. Economically on the opposite spectrums. Philosophically on the opposite spectrums. Intelligently, right there together. Geniuses. Pure geniuses. Both of them, incredible geniuses. They got it. But they agreed on one thing. And the greatest president in the history of this country is real easy, bar none, George Washington. George Washington got it. He understood their genius. George Washington hated the freaking royals. He hated the monarchy system. He hated hated them with a deep-rooted passion. So he lays out in 1790 his plan. Simple plan. It was an old plan that goes clear back to Scandinavian culture. You go back to freaking historians. You go back to economists clear back then. The flower exchange. You go clear back to the other great economist 2,000 years ago with a whip inside the temple. His name was Jesus Christ. Oh, did he get it? Because, look, economics is fundamental philosophy. Economics is fundamental religion. It's simple. Very, very simple. The foundation. Okay, my MBA class when I taught, I hope to teach again someday, hopefully at Europe. I've been blackballed here. We know, as an economist, what you walk into a class and they're going to ask you, even in Economics 101, what is the fundamental foundation, the first rule to economics? Scarcity, right? My class, I used to say, what is the fundamental foundation? It's philosophy. It's the philosophy between usury and enlightenment. So we go back all the way back. We go back in history to when we used an economic thesis in enslaving. Did that grow economies? Was that good? Was that bad? We go clear back. We go back, to the Egyptians and the pharaohs. That's what they did. They built empires, absolutely. But who benefited from the empires? The pharaohs. We know what they turned into. With wealth and power comes sexual power. It's repeated over and over and over. The pharaohs. I mean, how many did Ramses II children did he have? By the way, that was his body sitting in Niagara in that old museum for all those years, and it was proven. That guy, he was kept looking at it. That was the real deal. And so he had children with his own children. It goes into the structure of wealth and power that repeats itself over and over and over and over. Religious thesis, economic thesis. Joseph Smith. You don't think he wielded power? Are you kidding me? Religious leaders, you can go back. All of them. They had this fight. Is it Satan versus God? I don't know. Is it good versus evil? Absolutely. We are human beings. We're flawed creatures. I've had a lot of money in my life, and I've had a lot of pressure, and I absolutely flawed. That's what makes me human. And so, as we flaw, we go back in economic time and thesis and place. The great America. And it was a hell of a struggle. The war, somebody came to me the other day and he said, well, even back then the Revolutionary War was just a negotiated settlement. That's what all wars are. But you force them into an integrated settlement. That's what war is. That is the theater of war. So, Hamilton laid it out in 1790. We got little old ladies all over the Anglo-Saxon freaking colonies, which, by the way, Anglo-Saxons were living here for hundreds of years. Hundreds. Why then? Because the same thing. The East India Company, which is Walmart today, which is Microsoft today, which is Apple today, started moving in cheap goods. And they started hurting their businesses, taking their businesses apart, Samuel Adams. Paul Revere was the great craftsman. A lot of historians believe that maybe he's the greatest silversmith in human history. That's how good he was. When you've got an enslaved economy, the first thing you go after are the tradesmen. Hitler knew it. So many people have known it historically. The pharaohs knew it. The queen surely knows it. They know it now. The first thing they attacked in 1980 when they flipped their usury rate, which is the highest, it's matching the 79 on now for the opposite reasons. The first thing they went up was the tradesman. I was a tradesman for the plaster, with a hock and trauma hand. People say, oh, they made 50, 60, that's if you're working by the hour. I was so skilled I could make $300, $400, $500 an hour in the 80s, in the 90s. That's how skilled I was. I started with that hawk and trowel at a very young age. People around here will still tell you to this day that I've never seen nothing like it. I can't go back to it. I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to the first chance I get it because that's my romance. My doctors won't let me. Contributor to my leukemia? Probably. 10,000 jobs over here. And I never switched to the fake shit. The real thing. What an art. Oh my God, what an art. So these incredible skilled craftsmen that I grew up with in this place, the Mormons were the most incredible freaking craftsmen you ever saw. Clear into the 70s. Not now. Now they're hairsprayed, hamburger-eating fat asses who go down and freaking get a crew of illegals. Which, it's not the illegals' fault. It's the fat-ass hairspray. And it's the people, again. When I was young, you'd have pulled up with a crew like that, somebody would have come out with a gun and not a handgun. They would have come out with their Brownie double-barrel shotgun. And I'm not kidding. You'd have went to jail so fast. They really took pride in craftsmanship. I restored the Masonic Temple. I did the ceilings in the Brownie Center. I built the train, the Kids Museum. That's what I'm proud of. That's old war craftsmanship. I get people call me all the time, Kevin, you have to come laugh and plaster this for me. There's nobody. You're the only one. Suspended glass-hanging ceilings is the greatest art of all time. I'm it. I can do them. I tell them all this. Like, number one, you ain't got enough money to pay me to do that. Number two, I can't. I got leukemia. It's what we fooled even with plaster. They'll come in and they'll say, and they throw some colorants and put some drywall art up, and that's not, and they'll call it plaster. They'll call it Venetian. Go to Venice and tell them that. They'll hang you. So they go after the craftsmen first, which they did in the United States. They're all gone. The carpenters. I mean the real ones, the incredible craftsmen. That's why I was raised by. That's the rock masons. I was a rock mason. This beautiful granite from Weaver Canyon. It's the only place on earth that exists like this. It's all over my house. I mean, you want to talk an elegant art. Now, in Farmington, Utah, they have a code that you have to have that real granite rock on those businesses and those buildings. You have to have it. They've all quit. There's nobody left to do it. Nobody knows how to do it, so they're scrambling, so they're allowing some fake shit to go on. 25th Street has been all historically thing. It has to be historical. There's nobody left to do the historical work. So they're falling for the fake shit. It's over. It's gone. Not going to happen. They lose. So you had a very hardcore shift in wealth in this country in the 80s and the 90s. And the wealth shift went from the craftsman, the working class, to the exploiter. The big, fat, lazy, hairspray. We all know who those people are. We all grew up with them. They took the field. They're the contractor now. They're all car salesmen. They have no skills. They've never worked in any trade in their life. They never paid any dues. They're good at exploiting labor. They're good at lying and cheating. That's who runs the country. The tradesmen, because those people are men of integrity, tradesmen. The people are, they're gone. As GM goes, American goes. $70, $80 an hour, replaced by slaves in China. GM's still alive and well on the taxpayer's dime. They pulled him out of the Dow. And by the way, GM went bankrupt. They stuck it to the shareholders. They stuck it to the bondholders. They stuck it to the pension holders. The board of directors. The exact same people, these hairspray, hamburger-eating, freaking Harvard, freaking law degree pricks, just went to China. You go to China right now. Go there. You'll say, oh my God, is this America? I mean, they got a boom, and it's becoming, wealth is being acquired there is incredible. And do not kid yourself. Those royals in China are going to flex their freaking muscle military-wise. And so, we have to fight back. No, that's where you're wrong. We. There is no we in America. There is no we. The military complex does not represent you, so we got to throw our money to defend. No, they're not defending you. They're defending British Petroleum. They're defending General Electric. They're not even doing it. They're war profiteering. There's nothing to defend against. They're war profiteering. They're extracting fucking wealth out of the American, by which they did it. They looted this country. Absolutely looted it. Gone. So he lays out his economic thesis in 1790. Lays it out to Congress. Lays it out to Governor Morris, to George Washington, to Thomas Jefferson, to John Adams. Here, got little old ladies holding paper all over America, bondholders, and we're paying a small interest rate we can't even afford to pay. We cannot do this. It is important that we have a grade A credit rating. We have to have a central bank because it is ignorant and naive to think that our shores will not be attacked for our vast natural resources. And he didn't even know about the western natural resources at the time, which were 10 times even the eastern ones. But that's how brilliant he was. He hypothesized that. He was right. So he was a stickler. We have to pay this war off right here, right now, to show the world bankers that we are responsible, that we are going to become the new power. How are we going to do that with terror? You don't think the Queen and them flipped? They all went crazy, psycho. That will stop our cheap Chinese goods and our freaking factories in China from. And by the way, people say, "Oh, we flattened out the earth with technology." Untrue, not true. In 1790. Shipbuilders and sailors got goods from China quicker then than they do today. Because, again, the greatest craftsmen in the history of mankind, bar none. Shipbuilders of those eras. Moby Dick. You ever seen one of them? I mean, they'll take you. I don't know how they did it. I mean, it's amazing. So, he says, we're going to throw down a tariff. First 8 employees of the United States were the Coast Guard. We're going to set up at the port of New York where there's all the ships line up. And we're going to collect duties. And they're not going to get out and they're going to pay them up front or their shit ain't coming in. And we're going to pay off this debt. And then he writes in his second line, it will incentivize the buying of making of homemade goods. Which in turn, he said, will empower the working class, empower our populace economically. But then he goes on further and says it will create dignity amongst our people. It will create quality human beings among our people. It will create community. Oh, did it? Because it already had been there. They had incredible community in Boston, all through the colonies. They had incredible community in the 16th, 17th century. You know, the silversmith, the candlestick maker, the baker. Absolutely. They did business with each other. They were pillars of the community. They were organizers of the community. When something bad happened in the community, it was them they went to. The craftsman, the baker, the candlestick maker, the silversmith, Paul Revere. Now, they just opened a capsule, again, for the second time, that they forgot about in 1855, and they opened it, and just recently they found it. And Paul Revere had a plate in there. And even the Smithsonian said it is the most pristine, magnificent piece of silver they had ever seen. How good he was. You go to the Kano Brothers, watch the Antique Roadshow, and they go back into American furniture. Why do you think that colonial period furniture, you seen what it goes for? Those guys know. They were the greatest craftsmen in the history of humankind, bar none. See, let's go back to Jesus Christ. What did he do for work? Oh, he was a carpenter. He got this. He understood that work is more than money. Work is dignity. Work is honor. I was a plasterer, and I was thinking, I had my own secret sauce, pillar of this community. I was a giant pillar of this community, a very young person. Ask my children. Because I was so skilled with that Hawken trial. Started so young with that Hawken trial. I come from a family of doctors, neurosurgeon, the famous heart surgeon, started on claim. That's my family. That's my bloodlines. I could have went in a lot of things when I was young. I went to that Hawken trial. I built up my plastering business. You know, I traded equities. I started trading futures contracts on the floor of the Ogden Exchange of 14. I grew up on a cattle ranch. I knew Stegner. I knew Edward Abbey. I knew these people because we were communal people. We, as children, were encouraged to be out and about among each other. And we were. We spent our time out in the park, drinking, you know, doing all these things together that human beings do, from old to young, everybody. We communicated with each other. We knew each other. Everybody knew each other. We respected. It's like my daughter says, well, when people weren't competing over money, what were they competing over? Number one, physicality, looks. How about your skill, your work ethic, your craft? Oh, boy, when I was young, to be a beautiful plasterer, to laugh and plaster and do stuff high quality, you were put up on a pedestal, which I was at a very young age. The old-timers freaking went crazy over me. They're like, oh, my God, look at this guy go. You know, because I grew up with a drill sergeant for a father Marine who respected. I mean, I was taught how to work with the, you know, my grandfather, sort of that owned those sand pits in Brigham City, the cleanest white sand on earth. I grew up in that pit. I made homemade bar tile in that pit with my bare hands as a boy. I watched my grandfather do it. I knew the skill, the art, the craft. I knew the dignity of religion. I knew the dignity of humanity. I knew the dignity of community. These people had it. People can say whatever they want about the Mormons are horrible now. They are horrible. They're the opposite of everything those people were. The Mormons that raised me, by the way, Utah was a blue state in those days. John Kennedy had a very tight relationship with the Mormon Church. I knew David O. McKay very, very personally. These were men of honor. These were men of dignity. These were men of community. These were men that cared. These were many, they looked out for each other, all people. The police. You know, we have a story breaking here in Utah. This guy fakes cries on his freaking thing. He kills his second one. You know, that would have never happened in those days. And it never did happen in those days. Ever. Ever. So we can blame media, we can blame politicians. We just need to look in the fucking mirror. You know, this culture is grotesque. We're lazy. We're fucking want everything right now. Like I said, the interest rate proves that to you. We're not willing to say, and we want everybody else to do our dirty work. Yeah, we want a fucking wars, but we're not willing to do it. Ted Nugent goes all that fucking draft dodge and then goes on fucking video and says, oh, I'd killed a lot of people. I want to fight that fucking guy. That kind of shit would have never flown fucking 20, 30 fucking years ago. Those people would have had the fuck beat out of them. Literally, and I'm not kidding. But now people worship the golden calf. You know, people say biblically that these are the end times. Now, one thing with me, I can go there because I've read the Bible several times. I've read the Book of Mormon. I've read the Quran. We were required to when I was a boy. That was part of our education. We had incredible teachers. We had incredible people. Education was paramount here. I got an incredible education when I was young. Amazing education. My mother, the artist. My father, the drill sergeant. I mean, it was just expected. It was just part of our lives. It was our teachers, you know, the church that I grew up in. You know, we spent 3 or 4 days a week in that church, primary, Sunday school, and that's what we did. We read the book. We read the scriptures. Now, and we didn't knee-jerk and take pieces out. I understand the entire thesis. I understand that it was written by at least 40 people and probably thousands of people. And it's an almanac. And I understand that somebody made the decision of what went in and out, and the little teeny paragraphs and cliches that talk about the path and the way and the journey of those communities that were going then. There's a lot of good guidance in there. But I understand that it was open-ended. I understand that the King James Version was changed. I understand Constantine in 313. I understand the freaking wars that went on. Michelangelo lived in fear of his life for 40 years. You know, when he sculpted Moses 500 years ago today, 500 years ago today, he was finishing up that masterpiece. He never claimed to be much of a painter, and he didn't lay on his back. He has little sketches. There's sketches he shows about him painting. And, oh, yeah, for days on end. Days on end he painted those frescoes. And they're frescoes, by the way, real frescoes, which I've got over 10,000 frescoes. I'm the only fresco artist left in this country, the only real one. And for real, I am the only one. Seriously. When you plaster, you mix up your own plaster. Diego Rivera was no fresco artist. His team was. He had a team that plastered for him and painted anything. He oversaw it, which a lot of artists did that. Not Michelangelo. Yeah, he had some assistants and he had some odd-tenders, and, you know, I had my Giacomo that I wasn't named for very different reasons. You know, Angelo hated Da Vinci's guts. Da Vinci had feminized art. Really feminized. And Da Vinci, by the way, was a pedophile. How old was Giacomo when he moved in with him? That's a known fact. Da Vinci, Michelangelo hated. Michelangelo put the masculinity back into art. That's all that is. Putting the masculinity back into art. That's what I'm up to as the artist. I'm putting the masculinity. You know, me and Ackerman are working on these incredible pieces that we're doing together. You know, our Dogman Burgers are very important paintings. Very important. Our Chair of Despair. But we're working on some on the spirit of Vincent Van Gogh. Vincent really he took yellow, which people don't realize how masculine yellow can be, and he went there. And you look at Vincent's sunflower. I mean, remember those prints that were everywhere, in every thrift store and everywhere, Vincent's sun. It's the most hideous fucking painting of all time. I mean, that painting is hideous. I think it could be one of the top 10 most important paintings of all time. Why? We're talking Scandinavia. We're talking the Netherlands. We're talking the flower exchange. Do you know how worshipped flowers were in those days? Still to this day, the black tulip. Do you know anything about the economic theory of the collapse of the flower exchange? Well, that's what we're going to get here. They considered the sunflower to be a weed. They worshipped it. He was throwing right in their freaking face. Look at this masculine thing, you feminist freaking pretty painters in Paris. Fuck you. Fuck you, wealth oligarchs. I'm painting the weed. I'm going to paint it hideous. Right in their face. Oh, they hated him. Oh, he never sold a painting. They hated him because they knew he knew. They knew he was on. Da Vinci would have won one, because he knew he knew. Da Vinci never finished anything, including his horse. Da Vinci would just jump around and just take money from whatever pope was in vogue. You know, that's what he did. Michelangelo, you see those sketches he made of himself painting in his sketchbook. He's standing up, and they look like little child stick paint. I love those, by the way. You can see the little hairs up. They look like, my little grandson would do, which are really powerful. I mean, I really love child art, by the way. But the child art that the greatest artist in human history, bar none, would do those little childhood sketches of himself in his tablet while he's painting those. Now, of course, the Pope died, and the new Pope penny painted over them. Got rid of them, a lot of them. Wanted him killed. He was writing his heresy letter because he was the economist. He was the human rights activist, the greatest in human history. Jesus Christ, absolutely. Michelangelo, oh yeah. Alexander Hamilton. This is a progression. Guy sent me, he says, I didn't know this till yesterday. I really love that he sent me this. He sent me a photograph of Kevin the Saint, the Celtic Saint. Wow, I'm going to have to show it to you. Oh my God, I almost started to cry. I couldn't believe it, because I believe in, me go to Greek mythology as Hamilton did. He read Greek tragedy over and over, and then he became a Greek tragedy. Cassandra, those are based on very real stories. Greek mythology is very real. There's a fine line between what Greek mythology is and what the real stories were. But they're based on truths and reality and real people. Kind of like religion. Kind of like the light. Kind of like labyrinths. Are they the real thing? And people say, oh no, they're just a fairy tale. They're just a labyrinth. They're just Greek mythology. Oh no, then why do they stand the fucking test of time? Why do these religious, Jesus Christ wasn't real? Oh yes, he was. Was he the Son of God? I don't know. I'm sure not going to sit here and say. But how do they stand the test of time? Because they're based on that purity that we're on board, which I call the light. They're based on good versus evil. Enslavement versus enlightenment. We went back for enslavement. We were the great we. John Steinbeck in The Great Wrath said it so beautifully. My favorite book of all time. Absolutely. He says it. We simply went from the we to the I. And then after that Great Depression, or after that horrible, our parents, the greatest generation, went back to the capital we. Tax rate was 91% on the world. Bonnie and Clyde were worshipped when they killed bankers. When they went in, they were worshipped. They hated them. Fucking hated them. They hated the military complex. They listened to freaking Dwight. They loved him. He would be a raven, lunatic, freaking hippie progressive in this day and age. Beware of the military-industrialized complex. He warned us. It's not a cliche. It happened. We simply went from the we to the I, to the Kevin Blanch, back to the capital we, back to the capital I, capital I, Thorn, capital I-A. They're the quintessential thumbprint of this. Oh, we're liberals. Let's have a latte at our real estate. And all of them's fucking wealth is a facade. None of them have any character and soul to them. They're exploiters of labor. All the wealth in California is based on real estate values. Luck. Gandhi, wealth without work ends in disaster. Jesus Christ, wealth without work ends in disaster. Alexander Hamilton, wealth without work ends in disaster. Now, do they end with wars? What I think, and people say, oh, was that spiritual or biblical? I believe they're going to end with a natural disaster, and I believe it's going to be an earthquake in California, and I believe it's going to be Diablo Canyon. Let's hope not. I hope I'm wrong. We're San Onofre. And I've always been so hardcore against San Onofre and Diablo Canyon for a simple reason. I live in Utah. And I know the thesis. And I know the jet stream moves left to right. I understand the jet stream moves left to right. And I understand when a nuclear disaster, it's not local. Fukushima, Chernobyl, it's not local. It's where it rains. I knew Richard Miller Under the Cloud personally. That's a brilliant book. That map that Danny uses, that's Richard Miller's map. He spent a whole lifetime going to these places where it rained under the government mapping, which the government did map, and the government did tell people. They did people, but Americans didn't want to listen to it, just like they don't want to listen to what's going on in the USS Reagan trial in San Diego. They don't want to hear it because it breaks their dogma, it breaks their comfort. They're not willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. It's just like cancer. They build up scripts in the Huntsman Cancer Institute, and they're like hotels because they want you comfortable while you're dying. So because they don't want you to really fight cancer. You know, our rooms are pretty uncomfortable at LDS. It was under construction. They were not pretty freaking comfortable rooms. You know, they force you out of that bed. They don't want you laying there. They don't want you comfortable. They want you uncomfortable. They want you to fight. You know, and I thought, it's an incredible story. My father's journey, my path, your path. It's an incredible story, this story of America. Hamilton would cry. Jefferson would cry. George Washington would cry. By the way, you do know who George Washington's daughter was married to, or his granddaughter. Yeah, Lee. Oligarchy just sucks back up. Oh, no, and I don't want to hear that shit. Now, it's an ebb and flow. Absolutely. That's what the Civil War was. Again, slavery versus enlightenment. Who was funding the South? The Queen, breaking down tariffs. Who killed freaking the great tariff president, McKinley, with a bullet? The Queen. Blamed it on an anarchist. She was funding him. Paid him to kill him. By the way, every single president in the history of the United States had an attempted murder on his life. Every one of them. And when it finally happened to Reagan, by the way, it's true, Hinckley from Ogden, you know, had dinner with the Bushes the night before. You want to talk a crazy story. If that doctor wouldn't have heard that. And by the way, I stood right at that medical center. Guess what's in the medical center now? Okay, you got the Reagan Medical Center, and then you have the Reagan Archives that was built up after he was shot. That's where Homeland Security's temporary offices are, and they're pricks in D.C. So, when Reagan shot, you know, it ricocheted off the hinge. That's why we changed the hinges on the doors. And he got off on it. I mean, the only one, can you imagine a guy shoots a person and gets off? He did not get found guilty. He got found innocent by consent. He's out of jail. He's been out of jail the whole time. He was at the Bushes the night before. Absolutely. You know, the Bushes and the Reagans hated each other with a deep-rooted passion, and they got him all stirred up, just like this idiot that shot freaking John Lennon. Oh, he said he was more famous than God. He never said he was more important than God. But they get these people stirred up. They get these lunatics wound up. By the way, Andy Warhol was shot by another lunatic wound up at Berkeley. You know, so here we go down this thesis and down this plank. We walk this plank again. The Civil War. The whole world thought America was over after the Civil War, and rightfully so, it was over. So Booth executes freaking Lincoln. The most famous man in America becomes the most wanted man in America, and the most hated man in America, Brown, becomes the most loved man in America. These things can flip quickly, and it takes major events. Major events. The shirtwaist fire. It awoke a conscience in America. What's it going to take here? I don't know.
All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical. Boom.